Hello.
Okay, with the quorum of the board present, I call the meeting to order. Commissioner Evans.
Present.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Baki.
Here.
And Commissioner Rooney is here. With that, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with the consent agenda. The consent agenda is made up of routine day-to-day items that require board action but do not appear to have a significant public impact. Items may be pulled from the consent agenda for separate discussion or vote by any board member. On the consent agenda today is the approval of the board meeting minutes from our May meeting 2018. Payroll checks totaling $88,018.17. Maintenance and operations checks series 23,927 to 23,991, totaling $371,794.72. Approve the passenger facility charge totaling $65,000, and the financial reports for May 2018. Is there any item that any board member would like to be removed?
It should be.
The financial report should be for April.
No. For me.
Okay. Any items that a board member would prefer to be pulled?
I move we accept the consent agenda as published.
Go ahead.
I'll second.
The consent agenda has been moved and seconded. Is there any final questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda as written, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The consent agenda is approved. And we have the director's report.
I just have a couple of quick ones on here, and one was about the food and beverage proposals. They are due this Friday. We will get those open next week and get those out. I have Smith and Hogan on the committee. So we will get them out to you. We anticipate 3 proposers will get information into us. And probably, unless someone's unresponsive, we will interview all 3 of those. They all 3 came in for a visit, and there's some great ideas and new things that are floating around. So we're really excited about ideas that all of them have. So probably just makes sense, unless they're unresponsive for some reason in their proposal, that we would interview all 3 of them. So we were looking towards the end of July that we would be interviewing them to give us enough time to review those proposals and then get some questions together that we will send back out to the proposers. So as soon as we get them all open, figure out what we've got, we'll get the information out to committee members, and then we'll start looking for a date that works for you guys. And then we want to get it out to them as well so that they can get their tickets and such. So.
Did you say end of July?
End of July for the interviews. And then we want to bring it, end of July, maybe it'll be the beginning of August. We just want to make sure that we bring the final, I guess, our recommendation to the August meeting. Okay.
Laura, who was the committee?
Smith and Hoven,
Okay.
and then John and I.
Okay.
And I believe he has David Wiseman to sit on that committee as well. This week, Loves did submit their plans to the city, which is a great step because, this has taken us a little while to get here. There's just been a lot of things to go back and review, and obviously that's something that we want to do to make sure everything's right before it goes forward. So there's a meeting at the end of July to review with the city on those plans. So it's good progress. It's looking good. We've got our fingers crossed that something will go forward there. And then the last item is just a potential presidential visit on July 5th. So we'll have a meeting here this week with Secret Service to discuss that and what's going to happen. And if there's anything Air Force One viewing from the top of the falls or whatever, we'll let you guys know. But we don't know exactly what's going on at all. So that's it.
Do you have a capital project update?
I don't. You guys did get just the capital project summary sheet. And go ahead.
Question on the presidential meeting, is the board required, I have an appointment up with Libby.
Oh, no. No. He'll just be coming in on that day on July 5th. We assume that he's doing some type of campaigning or campaign assistance or whatnot. But it doesn't have anything to do with us as far as we coordinate with security and that. So.
Okay.
So just on the capital project summary, you can see that some of the numbers have shifted around a little bit more coming out of our reserves. And I believe that John talked about that on his weekly report, the shift. But we're going to look at all these projects that make up this project summary throughout this meeting.
Okay. Any questions about the director's report? Okay. Item 1, the director compensation recommendation we did last month, hold John's evaluation. We presented that to him. The board made a recommendation for his compensation, but procedurally I failed to get a motion and a second, so we didn't pass his compensation, and we need to do that this month. It will be retroactive to June 1st, and Laura has the details.
I'm just going to read what the motion needs to be, and then if one of you would like to motion and second it, fine. If you guys want to have further discussion, go ahead, but this is what the motion would be. For an increase to the director's base salary for 3%, then by $5,000 effective June 1st, 2018, and to provide a one-time $5,000 bonus.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
For an increase to the director's base salary by 3%, then by $5,000 effective June 1st, 2018, and to provide a one-time $5,000 bonus. So he got a 3% increase in his base. Then we added $5,000 on top of that to his base.
Going forward.
And then the $5,000 bonus.
For retroactive, for last year.
For last year.
Yeah, that last 5,000 for this.
Was for last year.
Yeah.
Which was what we
Yeah.
talked about
Oh,
last time. Yeah.
okay.
So, but we said basically that the bonus, because there are no performance issues really tied to it, doesn't make sense. So the conversation was put the 5,000 into the base salary and then not have bonuses going forward.
Okay, so we can discuss
Unless we
it.
put a
I'll make the
performance-based
motion.
issue.
I'll make the motion so we can discuss. We have to have a motion so we can discuss it. So I'll make the motion as you stated it, yes.
Okay.
So we just need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, so it's been motioned and seconded, so the discussion.
Yeah.
Debbie, you have some questions?
Well, no, I just wanted Vince to
Okay.
say what he was going to finish saying, and actually,
And I
have it
finished saying what I
official.
said, yeah.
Yeah.
So, does that make sense?
Yes. I wasn't here, of course. I think probably everybody knows that. I don't know, but I wasn't here, and I did just get a quick briefing from Dan ahead of time, and I would have concurred the bonus thing started a long time ago, and we had some conversation about that periodically, about the fact that it typically should be tied to some kind of performance metric or one or more. So
in essence, what we did is we awarded it for last year.
right,
And then going forward, we've eliminated it, but rolled it into his annual salary.
okay.
And then we did provide him with a 3% increase as well.
And everything else stays the same?
Everything else stays the same, including the length of his contract.
So what happens next year? What do we approve? Got that 5,000 in. Then he's got the 3% for this year, and then that starts as a base for next year when we.
So that's the new next year's base, and then it would just be a 3% or 2.5%
Where
for
we
next year,
decide.
whatever we approve.
Yes.
with no change to the base.
Correct. Any further questions? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of accepting it as or read, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. So the motion is passed. We're on to agenda item number 2, the three-phase electrical extension in the south general aviation area update.
Okay, we have like 5 or 6 items, 5 I think, items on here that have been approved in the past to what the project is, but we just had something change with each one of them. And that's what you're approving today. The project is approved, the work has been done in some cases, but there's something that has changed with it, and that's why we need to come back to you guys and talk to you about it again. And this is one of those.
Could I pause for just a
Yep.
second? I'm sorry. Just want to cover a couple of things. So now that we've done that for John, that we have to still do that last page of his contract, right? The labels his contract.
There is the term and there is the wording change that has been sent over to Dan.
No, I was thinking, don't we update his compensation?
We do.
and
We
then-
did
Okay.
that. I'm gonna
Okay.
be sending you over a new one.
Sure.
And then his performance evaluation has gone to Mick, or will go to Mick?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Will go.
Okay. Thanks.
Yep.
Just want to make sure we're following all
That's
the
good.
steps.
Sean's not here to keep it in line. so.
That's right. Okay.
Our
I'm
protocol
sorry.
officer.
So with the three-phase electrical, the big difference here is that we want to pay somebody different. So when we originally threw this out to you guys, we would have been paying Northwest Energy a maximum of $25,000. But as it turned out, when Front Range started to look at what they were going to be doing, they needed to hook into the three-phase electrical. And so it made sense for them that they were going to do some of their own trenching. Hopefully there could be some cost savings in it for us because there is some stuff being done by them and not by Northwest Energy. So basically they are doing the trenching, working through Northwest Energy. They are going to pay Northwest Energy, but we will still have a portion of it that is, well, what we had originally planned on doing. Theirs just goes a little further. So we do not have the dollar amount
don't
yet
have the
from
dollar
Front
amount
Range. But when we do, that's what we're asking for, is to go ahead and pay, Lauren is gonna pay for that, Lauren Smith, rather than Northwest Energy. Same project, same not to exceed of 25,000, we just wanna switch who the payee is going to be.
So Front Range is going to complete the work. They'll pay Northwest Energy, and then we're reimbursing Front Range.
For our portion.
Where before we were paying for all of it?
We weren't paying
Well-
for their portion of it,
Right.
but we would have been paying for our portion to Northwest Energy.
Okay, so
Yeah.
now we're,
And we had the estimate from Northwest at 25,000.
We did. So we know it's not going to exceed 25,000. We're hoping maybe it's a little less than 25,000 not going through Northwest, but we don't know yet.
Sure.
Do we get certificates of completion before we issue the check to Front Range?
I'm assuming it would be tested in some regard.
Yeah,
Northwest Energy
I don't-
will do the inspection.
Yeah.
right.
They're
All
overseeing it.
Front Range did was, they did the trenching. Northwestern Energy put the conduit in, ran the power lines, the three-phase power, installed junction cams, and then a transformer for Front Range.
So the only part that Front Range is going to be reimbursed for is the trenching portion.
The whole thing. Just because
Only
they
because
have.
they're paid.
Well,
Right,
The only work they did was the trenching.
correct.
we'll reimburse Front Range for the trenching that Front Range did, plus a portion of the electrical that Northwestern Energy did.
And that's done now?
it's, yeah, they have all their, Northwestern has everything done.
So we're only reimbursing them for the portion that is not for front range.
Right, so we came from our snow building down along the fence towards Front Range, and then it crossed the road again and went, I guess, kind of east over to where Front Range's new hangar is. From where it makes the corners by 300 feet down to the Gate 1 area.
That's our portion.
That'll be our portion, yeah. So it is somewhat shorter than it started out to be. And this power that goes down to Gate 1 will eventually go out towards the new hangar development and the big hangar that Eagle Jet Solutions will be.
There's no budget impact, because it's still 25 maximum. Okay.
I move we accept the change to the electrical project as described.
Seconded.
So the agenda item's been moved and seconded. Any additional questions?
That was that was what you guys were doing, you had that road all torn up down there?
Yep.
Putting that line.
Yeah, it went across the road, right at the intersection with the frontage road. Went down along the fence and then crosses back across the road towards, well, kind of behind the T hangars and over to where Lauren's hangar, or Front Range's hangar is gonna be. And then that enabled us to get that short piece of three-phase down near Gate 1, down by the private hangars there. And then, so now there's three-phase there, and then that'll be able to supply any future development to the west, plus Eagle Solutions, Jet Solutions will be able to tie in three-phase there.
And just to add on to that, the cable and the equipment is still owned by Northwestern Energy, so should there be a failure or damage, they own it, they would come out and make repairs to it. So as Laura and Rod described, Lauren Smith assisted with the trenching to help bear some of that cost, but should there be any future needs to do maintenance, it would be Northwestern's deal.
Any further questions? On that, all in favor of accepting the three-phase electrical extension in the south general aviation area as proposed by staff, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. The agenda item is passed. And we'll move on to AvMax Phase 2, the extension.
This is another one of those examples. You all have already approved moving forward with a 5-year extension for the wooden hangar for AvMax with similar terms. So once we got done getting your approval to move forward, we shipped the extension over to AvMax, and they said, well, wait a minute, there's something that we want to talk about. And what that was is the insurance requirement. We know that that's an old building, old wooden building. It's about 37,000 square feet. So what it said in the current language was that they needed to have insurance coverage for replacement of the hangar. If that hangar burned to the ground today, we know that it would cost a lot more to put up a 37,000 square foot hangar than what that building is worth. So they were asking us to put a number on it. And it's tough because we don't have an appraisal, and we don't have anything to really go on to put that number on it. We did put a number to it, to put something out here for them and for us to discuss, and that is $250,000. That gives enough coverage to do some repairs on it. If you had some damage on it, it wasn't complete damage, maybe hail, something else that was happening to the building. In discussions in the office, we've said that most likely, or almost surely that we wouldn't want to rebuild there. We would want whoever the tenant was, who was gonna be there to build what they wanted to build. And just to build a hangar, to get it there, to have it sit there and not meet the needs of whoever wants to move into it just doesn't make sense because of the large expense. So the change that we're looking at, we think is fair, puts the $250,000 limit on it, but also makes them responsible. If we don't want to rebuild, it makes them responsible for the cost, regardless of what it is, for demolition and cleanup of the site in the event of a total loss. So you would be approving that change to the extension today, just to give them a little bit different insurance language.
So we would pay up to $250,000 to repair any damage to a building if it could be fixed. But if it exceeded that, either they would pay for it or they would pay for demolition.
They would pay for, if it can be fixed up to $250,000 and we say, let's go ahead, then they would go ahead and the insurance would cover that. If it was that much, we very well may say that we didn't want to repair it anyhow, and they would still be responsible for the cost of cleanup and removing it, getting it back down to flat.
It really limits their liability to $250,000.
Right, I understand that.
maximum.
But yes, we could
Partial or
say
full.
repair it up to $250,000.
And if they did not want it repaired, we wouldn't have any cost commitment for them to tear it down and rebuild it. We wouldn't have to kick in $250 into that process.
No, that $250 is coming from their insurance.
Or from their insurance.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're the ones required to cover this, the $250 insurance.
So we have no real cost liability
No.
at all. We're just saying, okay, the building's worth this much, you insure it for this much.
Yes.
All right.
And that's where they wanted to be limited on it, because just to say replacement would be a lot more than $250,000 on a building that isn't worth that much.
So Laura, are we thinking that the language would be actual words of total loss as declared by an insurance company? Because we talk about sustaining major damage, which arguably is something else. Then we talk about in the event of a total loss.
We are the ones that will say that we don't want to rebuild or fix it. The airport authority would. So we would make that determination. Obviously, it would have to, insurance company would have to come out and do their assessment, but then we would make the decision from that point on what we want to do. You guys would make the decision on what you want to do
So
from
that
that
would be
point.
clear in the lease though?
Yeah.
Because I thought it meant insurance. Insurance, total loss, but I could be reading that incorrectly.
I will, I think that it is clear. Mick has reviewed this and approved it, so I will make sure.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying, but
Are you
yeah.
concerned about partial damage, Deb?
Well, I just want
As
to make
opposed
sure
to-
we understand what we're saying and they understand what we're saying. And in the event something happens, we're not arguing about what we meant.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm not an insurance expert. I just think there might be some room for differing opinions as to major damage or total loss.
Right.
Yeah.
So you'll make sure that Mick
I
has
will.
reviewed it. to
I will. I'll bring
include-
that up.
To include any damage that's due to AVMAX.
Right.
Right.
Because that's what it comes down to in our intention, and I will make sure that that's clarified. But our intention is that it is up to the airport authority for whatever damage occurs. If it's $200,000 worth of damage, we can decide that just take it down.
Anything over $250,000, we make that determination whether we ask them to repair it or whether we tear it down. Anything under $250,000 would be the same question, but they're liable for all of it.
Right.
So by limiting to that small number, they would most likely just tear it down and turn it into an airplane parking lot. what they're saying. Obviously, if they were worried about it, they'd
Yeah.
want to insure it for more to replace it. I would think.
Right, yeah. Well, we've known that really something else needs to be there. So we really need to make sure that the windows go if something does happen. Because the windows are the reason why it's part of the reason why it's still standing. Because they were ready years ago to do something different there, but because of the windows and the historical value of the windows, we had to build around them, which was quite a bit more expensive than just tearing it down and doing something new. So I didn't say that. I didn't really say we want to go hit the windows, but the windows are the big deal there. So if they were still standing, we'd have a problem.
But I see what Vince is saying. He's thinking,
Yeah, why would you insure a building for
Yeah.
that little value when you know it's gonna be $2 million to replace it?
yeah, if AvMax wanted to keep that same facility.
They wouldn't want to keep it like that, yeah. It's being used as it is because of what it is. And it is, we don't have a large cost put on that for them to use it.
But no
So-
matter what, with their insurance, we would have no cost involved if the tornado
Correct.
took out the building.
Correct. They would be responsible for that. And then that ground would be available for whoever, whether it was AvMax, Holman, to build whatever they want in that spot.
To the highest bidder.
Yeah.
The building's being used today because it's available.
Yep,
Uh-huh.
I understand, I understand.
What do they do with it now? Storage?
Yeah, they've got some search, they do a little bit of work in there, when it's warm enough to do work in there. But they put some heaters in there, right? But that's the only
Yeah, they put,
improvement, really.
yeah, heaters in there a long time ago, but I still don't think it keeps it warm enough to
Mm.
really work in the wintertime. They put curtains up to try to,
Sector off the space.
yeah, lessen the space, but it appears mostly to be storage, and they do work on a plane in there, probably dismantling stuff.
Looking for a motion for the agenda item.
You happy with it?
Pardon?
Are you happy?
Yeah.
I'll move that we
Oh.
accept the change for the AvMax lease as described.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion on agenda item 2 as recommended by the staff? With no additional questions or discussion, call for a vote on the AvMax Phase 2 extension as recommended by staff. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Agenda item 3 is passed. And we'll look at agenda item 4, the budget revision for benefits.
And this is, I guess there are 6 of them today that y'all have already seen. So the board approved this just in the last meeting. And we did not have the numbers from the city for their premium increase, but we did get those right after the meeting. You had approved $200,138 for health insurance for the fiscal year 2019, and we want to raise it to $256,000. There's 3 reasons. The city did increase the premiums, but the biggest parts of that are that we really weren't figuring in. We have an additional law enforcement officer that we hired in April of 2018. And then we also have an employee that was on vision-only coverage, and he worked at Maine, but he no longer works at Maine, so he lost that coverage. So then he moved over to family coverage as well. And there's a big difference between vision-only and then family coverage. So, Maria, do you want to add anything about this?
No, that's after it's 2 employees additional plus the change in premium from the city.
How much was the premium increase?
How much is the what?
How much was the increase?
We don't have a premium percentage increase. I have asked for it from the city, but they're doing things differently this year where there's nothing straight across. So it's maybe vision for employee and spouse went up, and health coverage for a single went down. And so I asked for the information. They said I have to come down for a meeting before I can get the information. So I haven't gone down for a meeting yet, but when you look at the two going to the family coverage, that's where the majority of that cost is.
Somewhere between 10 and 15% as best I can see.
Okay.
Wow.
Accounting for the employee numbers last year versus the 2 extra employees,
Yeah.
and then an increase on top of that.
Yeah, it just seemed like a pretty big jump for only adding 2 employees. But I guess it wasn't clear which coverage they opted for, you know.
They're both
Both
family
family.
coverage.
Yeah.
They're both family.
It is a decent jump.
Yeah.
Not saying it is, and I can get you the, I will get that information. They were busy with everything they were doing with their fiscal year coming up and their changes. And so they're not overly available right now either.
Who is the insurance provider?
MMIA.
Which is,
It's for cities and counties. And so we're under the city plan, and we're allowed to do it, and GFDA, but no one else is. So it is a good plan. It's the best plan I've seen out there. So it is a bit more expensive for the plan as well.
So it was mainly a timing issue then, because we knew we were hiring the new person. We don't factor them in when we know we're hiring them, or for the budget for the next year?
No, they should have been factored in.
They should have been
They
factored
just
in.
weren't.
They
Oh,
weren't.
okay, that's what I mean, we typically would do that.
Yeah.
How are they, as far as covering costs to the employee,
The health coverage,
yeah,
it's a really good plan. I mean, we do pay a copay, it's $25. Pretty much everybody, clinic benefits are participating providers. So you can pay that copay for most things that you're doing here, and it's pretty much covered. Once you go into the hospital or anything like that, obviously you're paying for a bed. I think it's $2,500 deductible for a single and $5,000 for family in a year. And all the preventative maintenance on ourselves, that's covered 100%, which is nice. All the well child's physicals, all of that is covered 100%. Having the vision and the dental in there too. And they're 3 separate plans, but they just get all squished together for us as far as when we're looking at the premium. So 2 cleanings a year, 1 vision screening a year. Again, really a big focus on trying to keep people healthy before something happens, and getting people in to see the doctors. So.
Just to sum it up, there was 1 person that I think was missed during the budget process. There was 1 added person that came in timing after the budget, I believe, and then there's an increase in rates. That's the difference.
and you say with the 2, it's actually a 15% above previous year from what you can see.
I've been doing some
Yeah.
rough math based on
Yeah,
last
few
year's
on.
rates.
Okay.
Somewhere between 10 and 15%.
I'd say probably closer to the 10, but I'd have to look at
Yeah,
it.
that's fine.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget adjustment as stated in the motion here, for the reasons also stated there.
I'll second.
So the item's been moved and seconded. Any final discussion or questions? Filling that, all those in favor of the budget revision as proposed by staff for staff benefits this year, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Agenda item 4 is passed.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 5, the FAA entitlement borrowing from Billings.
So John's given quite a bit of information on this. We've gone back and forth. We were hoping we could get more money, and Billings finished with all their capital projects and bidding and all of that, and they have $150,000 left. And so we borrow it from them this year, and then we pay it back to them next year. And it just means that we take less out of our reserve to pay upfront. So we are just looking for an approval to borrow the $150,000 to go towards our capital projects this year from Billings, and then of course we'll pay it back next year.
And that's federal money, it's
Yeah.
not out of our resources.
Right. These are grants that we would be entitled to that we're going to get.
And the summary we looked at last was a expectation of about 180,000, if I remember right, up to a
Yep.
maximum of, do you recall?
Was it like 210? I know we had a minimum, they told us a minimum of 150 from the start,
And so that's what we've ended up.
and that's what we've ended up with. Yep.
Commissioner Evans?
I'm just gonna make the motion to approve the recommendation to borrow $150,000 in FAA Airport Improvement Program entitlements from Billings Airport to be repaid next year.
I'll second the motion. Is there any further discussion about borrowing from Billings? So all those in favor of accepting the FAA entitlement borrowing from Billings at $150,000 as recommended by staff, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Agenda item 5 is passed. Agenda item number 6, the Holman lease extension.
All right, so last time, you approved us entering into a contract with Holman Aviation for the ground underneath their fuel farm. And so we'll be working on that. We are working on that, but it takes, it'll take place once it's completed that they will start paying on that. So for this meeting, what we were looking to do is to extend the Holman Aviation lease. And we're looking at the amount of investment that they are putting out. It's around $3 million that they're going to be investing over there for this fuel farm. And so we are recommending, right now they're at 29 years, their leases. It will expire in 29 years, and that's their master lease. All of their ground over there is on one lease together. So for this improvement and this investment that they're putting in, we are recommending to extend their master lease for all the ground that they lease over there out to 45 years. We have, in the past, pretty much always, well, the longest lease we've done is 40 years. The FAA just asks or recommends that you don't go over 50 years. We think that 45 is in line with just the amount of investment that they are putting out. So we would recommend extending this lease to 45 years. And that would run with the completion of the fuel farm as well.
That means to why to be 110 years old?
I think Jamie will be running it well before that.
Is there any further discussion? We talked about this during the work session, talked about some of the decreased liability the airport sees due to the fuel farm being taken care of by Holman Aviation and justifying the long-term lease. Commissioner Evans, you weren't here for some of that discussion, but the director did talk about the importance that he felt getting that fuel farm into somebody else's hands and responsibility, the importance he placed upon that and the controls that will be in place and the shared responsibility for access. the fact that we've experienced some fuel issues in the past year and a half or so as well.
This is something we've been working towards for 15 years, if not longer than that. So it's a long time in the works.
The fuel farm.
The fuel farm and switching over to
Right.
Holman and Front Range and that.
Private ownership of
Yep.
fuel farm and its operation.
I move we approve the extension of the Holman lease as stated.
I'll second it.
The agenda item's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or questions regarding the recommendation as put forward by staff?
I just have one, I couldn't find it right away here, but the new gates with the access, was that discussed in the last meeting?
I'm sorry.
The two new gates and the
Yes.
access, and Dwight's on board with the airport being able to use it and all that.
The infrastructure will be paid for by Holman, but the
I-
access and control of the gates will be turned over to the airport, if I remember right.
That was my request, and I believe the
Yeah.
airport supported that, since it is integral to the airport security fence.
Right.
I would pay for it and turn it over to them for their ownership and maintenance from that point forward.
And you were fine with that?
Yes.
I mean, it seems to make sense, but, yeah, okay.
Yes.
That was, I think
And
that was
Holman
my-
will be pretty much the sole user of those gates and the pavement and that. We would drive on it, I mean, as the airport, but really we're anticipating when Front Range makes this move, that they will put their fuel farm down at that end of the airport, down by their business.
So
So,
by keeping ownership of the fence and the gates with the airport, it's our liability with security versus,
Mhm.
I mean, they still have to meet all of the training requirements.
Right.
And security requirement, but it's our
always
liability
got
for the
that.
maintenance of the
Yep.
security of it is ours.
The other premises that I think is important here is that there is a fence today
yep.
that exists and that the airport controls and manages.
Right.
In the development of this new fuel farm, I'm proposing to move that fence. So then the airport, John, has asked that I bear the cost of moving it for my benefit
Right.
to help develop the new fuel farm. And in turn, the airport will continue to manage the security fence.
Okay, thanks. That spells it out pretty well. Yep, good.
Any further discussion? So no further discussion. All those in favor of accepting the Holman lease extension as recommended by staff signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Holman lease extension has passed and is approved. Agenda item 7, the purchase of an operations vehicle.
We have a 12-year-old Suburban. It's used, you've read in the memo, it's used quite often to take, it's the only one that we have that allows more than 2 or 3 people in it. So it's used quite often to take people out there on the field, down to meetings, whatever it is. We've always had, I guess, one larger vehicle like that for those needs. How many miles you got on that?
160.
160,000?
And it's 16 years old, it's a 2000.
It just barely broke in.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that, is that the one that you took me around the airport in, that nasty thing?
Oh! That's the one.
Oh, not bad.
It's still running, but we are looking to replace it in this budget. So we are looking at finding either a lease return or a used vehicle or something off of the state vehicle list, but we'll cap that at 40,000. So we're asking for approval for one of those ways, either lease return, used, or state list, to be not to exceed 40,000. And that also includes radio, getting it fitted with radio lights and the decals for the side of it, so,
This was included in this year's budget.
yes.
Any questions or discussion?
Can't you get that done for 40,000 on a car or vehicle, even though it's used?
Well, we're hoping. But how much is the lights, decal, and radio? I mean,
I
that's
would think we put another 4,000 or 5,000.
4,000 or 5,000. So you're looking at 35, 36 for the vehicle. And we don't want to get it too old. We want to use it for another 16 years. I know this one was new when we got it, from the best of my memory. So we want to be able to use it for another.
Then you're gonna keep the.
They
old
want it to
one,
look
well,
a-
You're gonna use it?
Yeah,
The old
for the off-road stuff.
The old one is staying in the fleet. Is that
Yeah,
right?
it'll
It
stay,
is.
yeah, we won't trade it off right away.
I want the new one to look a little better than the old one.
It's about 5 years older.
You need to make a motion? Go ahead, Billy.
All right, I move we accept the motion for a replacement vehicle as stated.
I'll second it.
So it's been moved and seconded. Any final questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting staff recommendation to purchase an operations vehicle not to exceed $40,000 with the additional cost of outfitting it with what is necessary, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Agenda item 7 is passed, and agenda item number 8, Jacobs Construction Contract for the 2018 program.
All right, last time, the board was provided with a scope of work, and you didn't get one part of that scope of work, but then we emailed it out, and this time you got both of them included in there. So you have 2 different packets, I guess, that have the scope of work for all of our capital improvements for everything that's happening out there this summer. On the top of it, you got the IFE, or independent fee estimate. And just because we have a new commissioner, I'm going to give a little bit more information, but if you know this, stop me. But we're required with these federal dollars, we get the scope of work from the engineers, and then we are required to send that scope of work to an independent engineer or architect or whatever it is. And then they're going to give us their fee that they would charge without seeing what we've gotten from our engineering company. They're going to give us that fee, and then we use that to negotiate the fees with our engineers. So we sent those 2 scope of works out to an independent engineer company, and they came back and they said, we would charge you $390,401 for this work for this summer. Our costs, I think it was a little bit different. It was a little bit lower to begin with, but CH2M, Jacobs, they went back and they looked at the independent fee estimate, and they determined that $345,636 is what they could do it for. So they were under what the estimate was, which sometimes that happens, sometimes they're over. If they're over, we're looking at ways that we can cut down those costs. Maybe we can have a different level of person that costs a little less do some of the work, or there's things that we try to find those cost savings, but it's something that's required by the FAA for us to go through this process every time. So that's what we've done. That's what you have before you right now, is a cost for all the construction out there for their fees. It's the $345,636, and that's what we're looking for you to approve today for these projects.
And we haven't approved any of this previously.
You have not. You have seen, and you're going to see with these last 3, we do have the full fee put in, didn't we? Or did we leave the 345 out?
The fee is built into
All the last 3,
all
yeah.
of those 3 projects.
So you're going to see on total costs for the water main, taxi lane, and SRE, you're going to see these costs built in, because we didn't have these costs. We didn't know what these costs were going to be necessarily. So you're going to see those built into the project, but you're actually approving us to pay them the $345,000. And then you're gonna approve an overall project cost on these last 3 projects.
We saw a portion of this during the work session.
You did.
And
did.
then we saw the second half of it as a secondary email that came out.
Yep. And the cost was a little bit lower. I want to say it was like $320 or $330 or something like that originally last month at the work session.
Any other questions regarding the motion or the agenda item or the process?
How much different is it from our previous estimate?
I want to say last month that it was like 330. I'd have to
Okay.
go look to be sure. Their cost actually went up a little bit because they looked at some things that were brought up by the independent and said, yeah, we do need to charge a little more for this or for that. So it worked against us getting that independent fee estimate.
How much would meet federal regulation?
Roughly 5%. Is there a motion to accept the agenda item?
I'll move we accept the agenda for the, as stated.
Is there a second?
Second.
The agenda item's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion or questions?
Good.
Commissioners understand the process?
Yeah, did we have to pay for that other company to come in?
We
and give
sure
us the-
do.
Huh?
Uh-huh. It's all, we can get reimbursed federally, under, with those dollars, but yeah. And I want to say that we paid 3,000
Yeah, there was
for
like
it. I
20.
mean,
I'm not advocating for the process, but in years past, when the independent fee assessment has come back lower, there has been times where it has benefited
right,
the process,
that is true.
despite the fact that it's a unique way of accepting a bid.
Validating, at least validating.
Sure.
Yeah.
Any further questions or input from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the Jacobs construction contract for the 2018 program as recommended by staff, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Agenda item 8 has passed and is approved. Agenda item number 9, the water main extension update.
All right, so 9, 10, and 11 are all, just the dollar amounts have gone up. Nothing's going to go down. We had you look at the estimates that we had prior and approve these projects because we didn't want to start spending design dollars from Jacobs without having approval from the board. So that's why we brought it to you to begin with and why all of our bids, from the last meeting were high. And we have made some cuts on some of those projects in the SRE, not in the water main extension or in the GA taxi lane expansion. But we did make some cuts just because it was too high. So for the water main extension update, the estimate and what you had originally approved was $300,000. And this is to put the 16-inch water main down there in the South GA area. That's several hangars, existing hangars like Front Range, they'll be able to feed off of this main and all the individual hangars down there. And then the new one, Eagle Jet Solutions, will be able to, it needs this for sprinkling needs and that. So we are now at a total cost of $354,927, and we're asking for a not to exceed of $360,000 to give a little bit more room there. We did have some added costs come in because of the city's review of our plans and certain things that they wanted added, which one of you two, if you want to talk about what those changes are.
Yeah, they requested 2 additional 12-inch gate valves based on on their review and I guess their ever-changing criteria for waterline install. And then similarly with the Eagle Jet Solution hangar that's being constructed, it'll be constructed concurrently with these waterline extensions. So they were able to allow the project to see the removal of 2 temporary plugs on dead-end lines because they know that construction will be continuing to loop the system. So that's a cost savings in the form of not having to install that work at this. So as Laura said, we went up with gate valves, but then we also went down with the removal of temporary plugs because of simultaneous work. And the costs that are on item number 9, that increase based on the city's review is built into that number on item 9.
I had something in the discussion part that was throwing me there on that first paragraph under discussion. Are we saying the changes are because, size or tail heights higher than 38, but these planes are only going to be 30? I thought they were going to be higher than 38. If you read.
Well, the C-130 have the 30 feet, but the 737s are higher.
So
These changes, the foam was required to have the larger square footage.
right.
Yeah. And they do anticipate, yeah, I guess the C-130 has greater than 30 feet as well?
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
38.
But the largest one is the 737 tail.
Okay, so we're not saying they're going to be higher than 38 feet.
Yeah, the door opening, I believe, on that hangar is gonna be 40 feet. And then your hangar door, the height of the hangar door has a lot to do with what your fire system is.
Okay.
Because you can get larger airplanes in, so then they want more capacity on the fire system.
So I guess in a nutshell, given the proposed aircraft, the size of the aircraft that will be utilizing this area, it warrants a certain size hangar.
Right.
A certain size hangar, according to fire code, requires a certain volume of water to suppress, a fire
Right.
system.
Right.
Thus, the need to extend a 16 and a 12-inch in order to loop it. And working with the city over the past few months, the smallest size that everyone has determined to feel comfortable with providing sufficient water is the looping of a 16-inch with a 12-inch.
Okay.
Ideally, they would love a 16 looped into a 16, but volume-wise, it will provide a little bit more water, but a drastic increase in cost. So that's the whole reasoning behind these waterline extension projects. And breaking ground of this hangar is anticipated to occur this summer, at which point the hangar owner will be doing his portion of the looping to tie into this item 9. So at the end of this summer, in theory, there'll be a complete water loop system down at that end of the airfield.
Okay.
So what changed into the design caused a $50,000 increase, basically?
So I believe with the numbers, the increase is adding in the engineer's inspection cost. So the $343,000 or $345,000 that was discussed, portions of that have been now broken up and inserted into items 9, 10, and 11, which is the reasoning behind those increases.
And just a little bit more cost in the project.
Yes, I mean, and in
Well-
fact, yes, as Laura stated, we have been, in 9, 10, and 11, we've been including the bid prices from the contractor. Before, they were based on estimates, but as Laura said earlier, bid prices were higher than anticipated this year, but they are now inserted into those items to reflect actual contractor estimates.
Did you get your question answered?
I think so. I guess I understand why we're doing it. It's just, I thought the point was that we had planes that we were planning to have here that would be higher than 38 feet.
Mhm.
It makes it sound like there's no place for them to go right now. It's probably just the way I'm reading it. I mean, it says that you have to have the fire code changes are, if you're serving tail heights larger than 38 feet, but it doesn't sound like we're going to be serving tail heights higher than 38 feet, if I'm reading this right. You see what I'm saying?
Well, the goal is that hangar is being built specifically so it'll hold a 737, which is a personal business jet.
Yeah,
So somebody could bring in their personal business jet, put it in the hangar, and not have to worry about hail damage.
but that's if it's 38 feet or more.
Well, we don't have a
Right.
hanger for it right now.
Oh, okay.
There are no
okay.
hangars that big now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Just-
So
Okay,
I think
just
that's
the
what
way
it's
I'm
saying
reading
is that today, we don't have that capability.
Okay. I think I'm good.
Looking for a motion for agenda item 9.
So, let's see.
Can you read that to me again?
Sure. We are looking for a motion for the water main extension, which increases the cost from $300,000 to $360,000 based upon received actual cost as bid by the contractors.
And 100,000 of that does come out, we're hoping to reimburse from TIF.
That was already in there, though,
From
right?
TIF, okay.
Yeah, that was already in there, but just,
Okay.
So really, what we're looking at is an increase of $60,000 from the original estimates, engineering estimates that were put together.
And this is just for the water line.
This is only for the water main extension.
I move we accept motion 9 as stated.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any final questions or input on the water main extension? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the water main extension increased cost based on bids that have been received, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion is, or the agenda item is passed. And we're on to item 10, the South GA taxi lane extension.
So this one was approved in November, and this is, there's really, and Chris will talk about this project a little bit, but really, this is purely due to the bid, and then we did put the fees in for engineering, but we had originally approved 500,000 on this. So we are asking to go to a not to exceed of 760, and we just, the bids were just higher than what we were expecting. But do you want to just review this project?
Sure. So as Laura stated, last year, actually for 2016 and 2017, the Red Horse Squadron out of Malmstrom, they partnered with the airport to provide the labor as to construct this taxi lane, which was referred to as Romeo 6 on the far west end of the airfield. Since that, well, I guess that was all based on expansion and the type of smaller aircraft that would utilize that area. Given the recent interest by this Eagle Jet individual to bring in a 737, which is a Group 3 aircraft, which is quite a bit larger than the original construction, that led to this pavement expansion that we are looking to perform this year in the 2018 project. So I know it describes it in detail, but it's basically the widening of pavement by about 15 feet in order to accommodate this larger size aircraft. It'll be full depth pavement construction, regrading of the drainage swales around there, basically just widen it for this future development. The good news is once it's widened now, it will integrate into the master plan development for the area. So unless the airport approves Group 4 aircraft, something larger, which I doubt, there's no need to widen the area in the future. As Laura indicated with the prices, the original 500,000, I believe, was an estimate. To put in perspective, the sole bidder, United Materials, just for their bid of construction was 650,000. So that's already 150,000 more just in their costs. And then in addition, as Laura said, the 345,000 as part of the engineering and construction management, the portion of that related to this was integrated into this project, which is the reasoning behind this increase as it's shown on item 10.
Will this extend the taxiway down so that it will turn into it directly, all the way down to the end of, was it Alpha 7? So
No, this is actually just more or less right in the vicinity of Romeo 6 right now. There is long-term development with the addition of maybe 2 more large-size hangars, where then an additional Romeo 7 connection would be proposed for that area. But that's not part of this, it's in the master plan development. In order for that to occur, it would need to trigger additional hangar construction. Right now, the Eagle Jet Solutions is the only hangar interested of that size. Should there be another tenant that would construct to the west of him, that might prone discussions to go forward with construction of Romeo 7.
I guess my question is, have we received firm enough commitments from Eagle Jet to spend that amount of money? Because if we spend that amount of money and start improving and they go, never mind, we're not gonna build a hangar and walk away, that's a lot of money to do nothing.
Right, I mean,
Have we signed their lease?
they've signed their lease, they've picked out a contractor, thank you. And they're set to break ground.
I guess to give you some confidence, they've ordered their steel, so that's a significant cost. They've vetted their design through the city planning, their engineering department to get their permits. They've also worked with the same subcontractor that's doing the water line work that the airport is using for the SRE building. So at this point, they have demonstrated significant interest to go forward and front the capital. If they were to pull out at this point, I would think there would have to be some significant reason, because they would be relinquishing quite a bit of money in design and purchase of materials at this point. So,
Just as a reminder, most of this is federal,
Yes.
Yes.
federally eligible.
90%.
yep.
So the difference went from about 50,000 to the airport to 75,000 to the airport, right?
Yep.
Because of our 10%.
Right.
So looking for a motion to accept the actual cost for the south taxi lane expansion.
Guess I will make the motion this time to accept the staff recommendation for amending the design and construction spending authorization of the South GA Taxi Lane Expansion Capital Project.
I'll second.
You want to finish? Not to exceed $760,000.
Then I'll second.
Well done.
I thought you were done, sorry, Deb.
That's all right.
Are there any additional questions or input regarding the taxi lane extension?
Well, Vince's question just prompted another one in my mind. Have we heard anything back on the other, who was it, the Forest Service? Or who?
We haven't heard anything back. Yes, we put in basically we responded to their proposal, but we haven't heard anything back, and I don't know how long that would be before we would.
Okay.
We're definitely set up for it if they chose us, if they chose our location, we would be ready to roll.
Okay.
No additional questions or comments? All those in favor of accepting the staff recommendation for the South GA taxi lane extension, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Agenda items passed and approved. We're on to agenda item 11, the SRE building phase 2.
And the last increase of money. So this one you approved at 1.6, and again, that was an estimate that didn't have the engineer fees in there. And again, our bids came back a lot higher than what we were anticipating. There were a couple of items that were taken out of the process there that we said were too expensive. The fourth bay.
The fourth bay and the mezzanine rack.
And the mezzanine rack. So we did remove what wasn't absolutely necessary right now to cut those costs. But the rest of it is in here. And so again, we're looking at 1.92 as a not to exceed in order to move forward with the SRE. I don't know if either of you two have anything that you want to add about that project. It's kind of the same as everything else, it's just.
Same as everything
it's
else, it's
more-
also using federal grant money, so the airport's participation is only 10% of any.
With the exception of the floor.
The epoxy floor
The
coating is
epoxy floor is the
32,000.
32,725 because that's not federally available to be funded. So that will come out of our funds. But everything else is 90/10.
Mhm.
And if I could digress just one, back to the water main, how much of that did we decide was federally eligible? If any,
I don't.
the water main extension?
The water extensions are, it's the 90/10 split again.
Is it?
Total, yeah.
Okay, so it's.
No, the water main is out of authority funds.
Are we
We've got-
talking,
Well, hold on just a second here, because we have some water in this project. So if we're going back to the water main that you guys already talked about, that's authority funds, but 100,000 of that is from TIF.
Gotcha.
Okay, so 250 comes from reserves. In this project, there is some water main, there's a water main section in it, and that is federally eligible. And that's included in the whole thing. Do you want to know how much that is?
No.
No, because I think you were going back. You were going
Yeah,
back.
I'm
It's
sorry.
going to put you on the spot.
Once we got into the whole federally discussion, I totally forgot about that, so I just
Right.
was trying to wrap my head around our dollar spending.
Yeah.
John did explain why it wasn't federally, or why it wasn't eligible for federal funds last time.
Right.
I've forgotten the exact details.
And I believe he said that it may be worth addressing, it may become eligible.
He did feel at some point.
It is
he did
eligible.
Feel there was.
It is
a way to
federally
get it
funded. The only thing that's not going to be federally funded is the sewer line.
Well, we've got it coming out of authority funds on here.
Right.
So we could be shifting that into, and paying it back at some point, or is that where we're going to pay back on the piece of equipment, Rod? Where we're going to move over the snow equipment?
Yeah, there's,
I believe it comes out of reserves for right now. We would, I mean, that's how we have put it out to you guys, but we can come back and,
the water line should be federally eligible, whether it's the 8-inch in the SRE project or the 12 or the 16.
But it's not shown that way.
no. That's, yeah.
I do think,
So, yeah, I
I recall
apologize for that, but I
John-
think we can come back and get it funded at some point, but that's just not what we
That's what
were
I-
doing at this time.
that is what I have in my notes when I
Mhm.
spoke to John as well, about the agenda item for this month, is he did feel he could go back, but it was, for a detail that escapes me today, it was not federally eligible.
And I believe part of that was the sewer part was not.
The sewer is not federally eligible.
Sewer wasn't, that was under another project.
Okay, but that's separated already. Okay.
Yep.
So, for the SRE, it is, the authority funding is 32,000. And there's some.
And then the 10%.
Sure.
I'll make a motion that we approve the staff recommendation authorizing design and construction of the SRE Phase 2 capital project not to exceed $1,920,000.
So the agenda items were moved and seconded. Any other questions about the SRE expansion? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the staff recommendation to accept the actual cost as received from bids for the SRE expansion Phase 2, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. There are none.
And I'll get the answer to you guys on that, on the water meter.
Sure.
I'll get that out to you.
Are there any board comments, Commissioner Evans?
No.
Commissioner Smith, and Commissioner Baki. I have none today. Are there any public comments today? No public comments. With no further business to come before the board, I declare this meeting adjourned. If we could just take 5 minutes.
We don't have a work session.
Well,
This
then
shouldn't have
longer.
been sent out at all.
Okay.
So,
And no board meeting in July,
correct?
so August is next.
So we did so much today.
That's right.
So
We
we did
did.
spend some money.
August meeting will be a long meeting then?
Not necessarily. We won't have anything moving to the board meeting. We'll just have, well, that's not true. We'll have the food and beverage concession will move to the board meeting because we already had that on the work session. And anything else, I mean, the work session could be a little bit longer because anything in the next 2 months we'll just be putting on there.
Any possibility of a special session in July for?
It's not really looking like there's anything.
We
We'll
don't
let
need
you
to
know.
do-
We would always try to find something that would work for all of you, but there's nothing that's shouting at us right now.
There's nothing we need to do to help Love move along. That's all good.
It should be good. We hope, fingers crossed, that they'll have a smooth flow through with the city on those plans. So,
That's it.
that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Happy summer.
It'll be a record.
Always is when Laura runs the meeting.
Put some in your pocket.
All right, so I need some clarification. You, the first one that we did.
So they just didn't reply.
Do my notes.
I got it.
All right.
I
got it so confused.
Oh.
Yeah, because we're getting it from the
So,
right. Usually get it from something and we come back with the 2 There's other things.
so the very first one, before we got into 9, 10, 11, we talked about an extension of Jacob's construction work crew. 345 for. And then you said that ties in directly into the approval of these three.
Right, so
Are we talking, is this just the cost for the engineering?
engineering and construction management. Yeah, so Chris or Jacob's guy is gonna be here through this whole thing. And they,
No, why are we paying these guys versus CH2M?
well, CH2M is Jacobs.
Oh, that is the same. Ah,
Jacobs
all right.
just bought CH2M Hill, so I guess that's confusing
I'm like, why the hell
because.
why are we not paying
Oh,
these guys?
yeah, no, Jacobs just bought CH2M Hill, so they're right in a transition of,
Okay.
it'll become Jacobs.
Ah, now the light bulb comes on.
All this other stuff